can separate positive and negative rights. Positive rights and my right to Roger's coat, and I have no right to his coat, it's his coat. Positive rights means I have a right to other people's stuff. Negative rights means that I have a right not to be molested, not to be murdered, not to be raped, not to be enslaved. And there's a gigantic chasm between these two. And to say that there's no distinction between them, you know, one of the jokes is, you know the difference between a bathroom and a living room? And the answer, if you say no, I say, don't come to my house. Well, if you don't know the difference between positive rights and negative rights, I say don't get into political economy, because that's the key distinction, and Chomsky doesn't make it. Now, this business of the starving person, this is sort of Malthusian, that we're always near the starvation levels. The fact that we've always had slavery all throughout history, see, I'm talking about history now, as an Austrian economist, shows that we were never in a Malthusian starvation situation, because if we were, if a person couldn't produce more than the subsistence level, who would want to go capture him and make him a slave? Who would want to buy him? Nobody. But we've always had slavery, unfortunately, unhappily, which shows that we've never been at this starving level. But let's assume, hypothetically, there was a starving person. To me, the key is, did the businessman make him starve? Did the businessman first come along and take all this stuff away, now he's starving, and now he makes a contract? Well, then it's, I agree with Kenneth, this is unfair. But suppose the businessman had nothing to do with the starving guy. Well, let's take the sweatshop. I go to Bangladesh and I offer, 30 cents an hour. And they're starving, or they're very poor. They're not really starving, but they're very poor. Am I a benefactor to the sweatshop, or am I undermining them? Obviously, I'm a benefactor. I'm helping the starving person. So I think that this is, totally backward. Since I have another 30 seconds or so, Kenneth says that libertarianism think of people as isolated nomads floating in thin air. We have no civic engagement. Well, right now I'm engaging in civic engagement. I'm forever talking to people. I believe in clubs. We have a chess club. We have a libertarian club. Libertarians don't want to have total isolation of people. We don't want to be hermits. We interact with people on a voluntary basis. We just insist that it be voluntary. Now, with this joint action and Chomsky's communitarianism, it all depends upon whether it's voluntary or not. We believe you can have a kibbutz, a commune, you can have from each according to his ability, to each according to his need, as long as it's done on a voluntary basis. When it's done on a coercive basis, then all bets are off. So we're not against joint action. God forbid, people who cooperate. One of the synonyms for economics is cooperation. That's how we cooperate with each other through commercial interaction. So I think it's a misunderstanding, miscommunication or misunderstanding of what libertarianism is, to say that we believe in isolation and nomads, and we don't want to have joint action, and we don't want to have interaction with people. That's just a misreading of libertarianism.
Thanks, Dr. White.
Good. I was afraid I wasn't going to respond to this question directly, and I really wanted to, but Walter helped with that. I actually like the idea of free contract. I have a contract with Loyola, which I fervently hope they will honor, and I feel obligated to honor my contractual obligations to Loyola as well. So I do support free contracts. One of the reasons I think I will fulfill my prophecy of coming in a distant third tonight is that I have argued with Walter repeatedly, and not as well as I would have liked to have argued, that the right to life trumps the right to property. It does not cancel the right to property, but it trumps the right to property. And I'm trying to come up with ways of convincing people that that is the case. So here's the best that I can do. I don't have, as I mentioned in my class today on human rights, I don't have a metaphysics of solidarity to give you, to prove to you with ironclad logic that each and every person in this room has an inherent worth, and each one is inherently equal to the other. I can't prove that to you. If you doubt that, I'm concerned and would like to continue that conversation for your benefit, actually, as well as mine. However, I can tell you this, and I think I feel much more comfortable here. Anytime you have any government that does not fundamentally prize the individual right to life, expect that government to take an ominous and bloodthirsty turn, whether it's Hitler with a master race, Stalin with a master class, or some sort of libertarian utopia where property rights actually trump the right to life. I simply ask you to reflect, why do we have property to begin with? We have property so we can enjoy life and the benefits of life. When you remove the primacy of the right to life and make right to property primary, this, and Walter's a good man, but it is an insidious philosophy. And only woe will come when that is followed.
Thank you. I've been asked in the interest of time to cut 2 questions. So we're not going to cover question 4 and question 7, which leads us to question 5, which Dr. White, I'd like you to address first. Ayn Rand has denounced libertarianism, yet many libertarians still use her objectivist ideas as a model for their beliefs. Can you explain how this happened?
A little bit, not very well. I read Nathaniel Brandon's account of her arguments with Murray Rothbard, and her argument essentially, so now I'm an outsider looking in, looking at 2 people fight where I'm not part of this movement. But apparently Ayn Rand said that if you have Murray Rothbard's notion of anarcho-libertarianism, you'll have Lebanon. You'll have civil war. So even Ayn Rand herself was, I think, what libertarians call them minarchists. So you need something like law. And I will simply add, to say that you are in favor of laws but you're not in favor of coercion, to paraphrase Thomas Hobbes, one term attacks the other. Law is about coercion. If you're against any coercion whatsoever, you're against laws.
Dr. Block.
Ayn Rand denounced libertarianism mainly on product differentiation grounds. Dismissed us libertarians as hippies of the right. I don't much like the left-right distinction because it always leads out libertarianism. So I think that she was just a unique person, a brilliant person, but she didn't like libertarians. She wanted everyone to be objectivist, and yet the difference between the two was very little. I wanted to talk about a few other things since I've got a minute and a half, I think. First of all, this right to life. There is no right to life. If there was a right to life, right now there are people dying somewhere, I don't know where, that means we're guilty. Because if I have a right, you have an obligation. I have a right not to be molested. You have an obligation not to molest me. If I have a right to life, then you have an obligation to feed me. But there are people that are now dying. According to the right to life, we are all murderers. But that's crazy. We're not murderers, even though there are people dying. Look, if you want to promote life, and I certainly do want to promote life, the best way to promote life, paradoxically, is not to say you have a right to life, but to say you have property rights, because property rights will best promote the right to life. Now, I want to talk a little bit about this welfare stuff. Look, a frog, if you put a frog in cold water and you heat it up slowly, the frog will stay in the water and will be boiled. If you put a frog in boiling water, its metabolism is such that it'll jump out. Slavery was like boiling water for the black family. Slavery did not destroy the black family. Yes, it destroyed the black family during slavery, but in the aftermath of slavery, black people were getting together, and the intactness of the family in 1890 and 1900, 1910 was about the same black and white. The black family withstood slavery because it was like boiling water. Welfare, the sort that Ken, I think, is supporting, is more like putting a frog in cold water and the family dies. Right now, 3/4 of black kids are brought up without intact families. And it's not just a black thing. They do the same thing in Sweden, and there are white people in Sweden, and they ruin a family because the way the welfare system is very insidious. It breaks up the family. And yet the family is correlated, causally correlated, not just statistically correlated, but causally correlated with wealth. There is no black poverty on the part of intact families. I'm making it extreme. The rate of poverty of intact black families is very, very small, in single digits. The big black poverty and white poverty is non-intact families, but the welfare system that he's advocating breaks up the family. So I don't think that he is a good guy on this. He's promoting a welfare system that breaks up the family, that creates poverty. This is just one of the things we learned from economics. So read, what's his name, Charles Murray, Losing Ground. This is where I get this stuff from. So I don't think you're helping anybody by promoting welfare when the welfare system just breaks up the family, and the family is correlated. The family is crucial for getting rid of poverty, and yet the black family is just broken up. It's horrible family is starting in now also.
Thank you. Professor Keulman?
Well, to venerate Charles Murray, I would also recommend that you very quickly pick up, although it's a very thick book, Thomas Piketty, Capitalism in the 21st Century, which is by every economist that I heard from left, right, and center, the book on economics for this decade. And as one economist said, a Nobel Prize winner, possibly the book on economics for the 21st century, but that remains to be seen. But I recommend you look at that, especially, which is pretty much focused on this question of wealth inequality and political inequality and how the gap continues to widen. And so it's about this thick, it's filled with data. You can disagree with his data points, obviously, but let me know where you come out on that. And people are criticizing the book, but so far I understand it's held up pretty well. Trying to look at this last question a bit, trying to recollect some of my understandings of, I don't know the ins and outs of it, as Roger said, the Ayn Rand business, but I also tried to look at it possibly obversely from the point of view of libertarianism, so I'll say that at the end. I think Ayn Rand condemned libertarianism as having a greater threat to freedom and capitalism than both modern liberalism and conservatism. She seemed to consider objectivism as an integrated philosophical system. Libertarianism, in contrast, is, as far as I understood, she stated a political philosophy which confines its attention to matters of public policy. For example, objectivism argues positions in epistemology and metaphysics and ethics, whereas libertarianism doesn't really address these issues, she said. Rand believed that political advocacy could not succeed without addressing what she perceived as its methodological prerequisites. So she rejected, as I understand it, any affirmation with the libertarian movement, and many other objectivists have done so as well in the past. So let me just conclude from the libertarian perspective, as I would understand it here, this gulf. Well, question first of all, what are the moral foundations of capitalism? Question. Many supporters of capitalism believe that these foundations have already been provided. In fact, that we already possess in the writings of Ayn Rand a demonstration, a proof, cogent argument, and establishment of a moral view from which capitalism can easily be justified. Well, I think the intention would be then to examine Rand's arguments for her conclusions. It would not be to argue that we should sacrifice others to ourselves, or that individuals do not have rights to our non-interference in their lives, or to demean the virtues of rationality, honesty, integrity, productiveness, pride, independence, justice. I think the attempt would be here, if we were to really go into this, the attempt would be made to see whether in her published work she in fact objectively establishes her conclusions. She doesn't, as far as my reading of her. She fails to do this.
Thank you. I will have one last question, and then we'll open up for questions from you in the audience. And this is the question that deals with a very practical issue, so I hope you can work out some of the things that we've discussed so far. The issue of vaccinations. So libertarianism advocates for private liberty and limited government intervention. Please think about this in relation to the vaccination issue. How does libertarianism reconcile the conflict between parents' private liberties to raise their children and the overwhelming scientific evidence supporting the efficacy of vaccines? And I've got Professor Keulman going first on this one, followed by White and then Block.
Here I probably defer to Professor Block. I mean, I just presume pretty much all the principles fall into place here, that, as he has expressed pretty well, that there is no right to coercion in these areas, and so any individual family should not be coerced into vaccination, no matter what the circumstances, no matter what the scientific evidence is. I guess you could say the same thing about climate denial or any other major social issue, that there's no right of an institution, the state, government, to coerce individuals or families to act in a certain way. To violate their integrity. Before I hand this over to Walter, I guess, or to Roger, I got an invitation the other day as chair of the department from the Christian Science group wanting to have department sponsorship for a lecture in Christian Science. And the Lord made sure that I understood this is not Scientology, this is Christian Science. Well, I spent about 10 years in the Boston area, so I know the Temple, Christian Science Temple, and Christian Science Monitor, which is a very fine newspaper, especially in international reporting. So I did know the difference. But I also knew that there were never any number of cases in the Boston area and elsewhere in the country where Christian scientists had, there's no other way to say it, allowed their children to die because they had appendicitis or serious flu or pneumonia, and they would not take them to hospital. They would not take them to doctors. You know, they prayed over them, they did what they could, and the children died. Now this happened, and then finally, Boston, the city and the state stepped in and said, no, sorry, this happens again, and it did, any number of times. I think it was manslaughter or involuntary homicide, something like that. They arrested those parents, and those parents are in jail. And I personally agree that they should do this, personally. You just do not allow your child to die when, you know, you can go to a doctor or a hospital, but I'll let
Well, this is my political moderation coming through on the issue of vaccinations and parental rights. I think it's debatable. I think it's a matter of deliberation. I certainly don't agree with rule by scientists. I mean, Joseph Mengele was a scientist, so I believe in democratic government and the power of democratic deliberation. I think scientific evidence can be used and weighed, but I think it needs to be predicated on the notion of the right to life. So I need to have a little bit of fun here. I believe that Walter got himself tangled here a few minutes ago when he said, well, right to life doesn't exist. Right to property trumps right to life, and observing the right to property is the best way to